Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And you're very welcome along to this week's edition of Friday Night Racing. It's Ger Gilroy and Johnny Ward with you in studio, back live in glorious Technicolor for this week's edition. As ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can text us during the evening on 53106, or you can get us on Twitter at Off The Ball. We broadcast live every Friday afternoon across OTB social channels, and then every Friday evening from 8 o'clock on Off The Ball on News Talk. Johnny, it's finally here. The Dublin Racing Festival is upon us.
Finally here with a crowd. David Jennings may have been slightly exaggerating things in the race post to say the last 2 years have been hell. Compare that to North Korean slave labour camp. Say watching racing behind closed doors probably isn't hell, Ger. But I know what he means.
I'm glad you're mates with him anyway.
Yeah, the general know what I'm saying. Because like even Leopardstown at Christmas was really disappointing that there was no one there. I mean, and this is
like we were going to have it. That was the worst part. It was
last minute.
Off again.
It was like, I think it was Christmas Eve they called it off. But with the rugby on, reports of Welsh people looking for pints early today in on Friday in Dublin, the rugby on and the Dublin Race Festival, like there was always that kind of symmetry between the rugby and this meeting, and even before that, the good racing around this time of year would kind of clash with the rugby, and you'd be encouraged to go racing to watch the rugby. But essentially, Dublin will be buzzing tomorrow, Leopardstown will be buzzing, and we've loads of grade ones to get our proverbial teeth into. And
we'll get stuck into them in just a little while. Our guest this week, though, does actually have an interest, particularly in one of those. Master McShee is running with a decent chance and a brilliant story behind it, and I'm delighted to say Paddy Corkery is with us live. Paddy, in glorious Technicolor yourself, how are you?
Good, Ger. Thanks for having me.
We're very excited to hear your backstory. Is it true you only got into racing in your 40s?
Yeah, I suppose I started hunting in my 40s. I could be late 30s or 40s, but I was always involved in some kind of sport. I nearly played hurling till I was 50, so I kept that sport all the time, and I always enjoyed sport.
It's interesting to like. We'll get into your profession and all that kind of stuff in a moment, but your connection with racing seems to have been kind of tangential enough. Or you weren't born into a racing family or anything, were you?
No, not really. No. I suppose hunting was my first interest with horses, and I liked horses, and I used to ride them out. And I said, you know what, I might get a race horse and see how we get on. And I did that, and I got the bug for it really, and I stayed at it then,
And so when you said get a horse, were you intending to be a trainer from the get-go? Was that like, I'll get a horse and train it and see if we can enter it in races?
Well, I've often said this about horse racing, and I say it about a lot of things, and I used to find I like to be hands-on, and I found with horses to be like buying a set of golf clubs and giving to someone else to play with them. I just wanted to be hands-on, and I liked that job, and I liked to be part of it,
Right. So, did you know what you were doing when you went to buy your first horse? Like, were you kind of had enough of an understanding of how the industry worked, or did you just kind of rock up one day and go, geez, how does this actually work?
Not really, I suppose. I was keeping an eye on the guys that were doing the job properly, and I kind of started at it myself, made plenty of mistakes, and let them to have them, maybe,
Right. And how many, when you started out, how many did you have at the beginning?
Just one.
Right. Okay, yeah. So it's all the eggs in this one basket then?
Well, at the start, yeah, I used just have one horse that time, and I used to ride him out myself, and you learn about how to get him fit and how to get him fresh and how to keep him right, and
We've been talking about that specific aspect of it with every trainer we have on. And that seems to be the magic part of it, is knowing when the horse is ready to race and knowing when you have to ease off because you're doing too much. So it's obviously trial and error from your perspective with just the one horse.
Well, very much so on the start, but as you get on with horses, you kind of learn their personality. And every horse has a different personality, and they probably tell you a lot by how much they eat and when they eat and when they're rolling and all that kind of stuff, and they're happy when they're doing that,
Yeah. So, were you successful with your first horse?
He won a pint of pint.
Right, great.
But I couldn't get him to eat, and I tried every trick in the book, but he just wouldn't eat. And maybe my second horse then, it was a mare that I bought off of Tom McCarthy. It was very successful. Well, she was ran under other people's names, but I did most of the work myself,
Right, very good. And so she obviously won races for you, did she?
She won 7 times and she was placed 14.
Wow, holy moly! You must be thinking this is great. I've got this cracked.
I have cracked it. And the other thing, of course, was, it's not alone. It's about luck. And every aspect of a horse is luck and a gamble. And if you have the luck and you're lucky, it just pays off,
Well, obviously, my favourite story is I've actually completely butchered it now, but which of the golfers was the luckier? The more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah. But, luck goes a certain amount, but you must be able to tick the boxes as well.
And look, the other thing that we always talk about with trainers is knowing which races to enter your horse into. That takes... You got to place them in the right company to make sure that they're up against a field that they can win in. How did you acquire that skill?
Well, you get out the calendars and then the night go by that I don't look yet. This race might suit the horse, or that race might suit the horse, and I look at the ratings and figure it out and just say,
So you had the pointer first, and then you had the mare that was very successful. At any point, are you thinking I might add a few more horses to this, or is one?
Well, I've had a few in between now.
Right. Okay.
And the biggest problem with a horse is maybe. The word maybe is a huge thing with a horse, and you get a horse there, you get him ready, and you run him, and then you say, he runs a stink, and you say maybe I should run him in longer distance. Then maybe I should run him in better ground. Then maybe I should put him over fences. Maybe I should put him over hurdles. And after about 20 runs, you say to yourself, maybe the second is useless.
You sound like you'd be good dealing with syndicates anyway.
Well, I suppose, you see, the biggest thing about when you're training for yourself, if you're not honest with yourself and get rid of a horse, that's not showing enough. That's kind of the secret. If you think of a horse that's good enough, I had another horse there now called Chance It, and he was a superstar at home. But the day he went racing, I think he'd prefer being in the pub because he never wanted to run.
It's mad, Paddy, the amount of horses are like that. You hear time again, Morning Glory, just whatever it is, goes racing, doesn't do it.
Well, it's something similar. I trained teams underage, and you go down there to the local field and you're training under 16 or a mile, and you say, I can't wait to see this guy playing in the championship. And the day of the championship, you can't find him. You just don't want to know, and it's the same with horses. The day it gets a little bit tough, they mightn't want to know.
Master McPhee isn't like that anyway.
No, and I suppose the other thing with me is, and I said this to Jane Mangan the other day, the other thing with me is he gets such a variety. If they're good, they get a real variety, because maybe Monday I might go to the beach. Tuesday I'd probably go to Brian Hallen's, it's a local gallop. Wednesday I'd go to Cormore. Maybe Thursday I'd go to Kylie's cross jumping. I might go to Mihal Griffin's. And, I said to Jane, when I put the horse into the box, he don't know where he's going. And some days maybe I don't either.
Because it's funny, like I've asked, I think I asked Patrick Mullins one day, what's the secret to Willie's success? And he said routine. And I just didn't stick right with me, because like I would have thought horses kind of after a while, they do get fed up, they're doing the same thing the whole time as well.
Well, I suppose, you see, you can do what I'm doing but still have routine. So routine means you go to the beach at 9 o'clock. Routine means you go jumping at 9 o'clock. You feed them at 1 o'clock. You know what I mean? So it is still routine, but it's variety.
The other thing, the significant difference is the numbers. You can decide what you're going to do on a whim. Am I right in saying that Master McShee is the only horse you have in the yard at the moment?
No, I have 2 more. Well, I have 3 or 4 more, but I have 3 in training, Master McShee and 2 younger stock. Okay.
And you're flexible enough with those numbers that you can decide on a whim. Okay, well, sure, today we'll go to the beach.
Well, no, to be honest, I figure out in my mind, we'll say, I'm going to go here Monday, here Tuesday, here Wednesday.
Right.
So I kind of plan out the week before I do anything.
Yeah, fair enough. And maybe that's the other thing, is that the gift of knowing the horse so intimately that you can ease off, or you can go a bit harder if you need to.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. And to be honest, Jimmy Maloney, we call him my works rider, and you know, he said he's blowing a bit half today, and I do a little bit more, and maybe he's right. I do a bit less, and you know.
The story, like I love the story of the individual horse and the background to him. So, like when he made his debut, 2nd of March 2020, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of Paddy Corkery. Certainly didn't hear of Master McShee. He was 50-1, running an 11 horse race at Leopardstown. Now he's already a 6-year-old. So what happened before all of that?
He had a lot of issues and a lot of problems, and Tom McCarthy and John Sheehan had him, and they contacted me one day and they said they had a horse there that had plenty of problems, and I just bought him off him, and I solved a lot of the problems really. He had wind problems and his leg used to swell up and different things, and you know, so.
If he had a wind problem, what was your what was your kind of if you hear a horse has a wind issue, you'd run a mile in terms of owning them or whatever, but what was your kind of prognosis? Or
well, I took him to a vet and he did him for the wind.
Can I just
he said he'd be successful.
Can I go back to the bit where the lads contacted you, and because they obviously, you must have a track record of taking horses that have problems.
I just have a track record of taking problems.
We'll get to that in the second half of the show. Getting back to the horse now.
No, I'm only joking. No, look, I mean, they told me they had a horse there, and I didn't really ask them what they were doing with him before that. So,
but did they know they weren't selling you a dud? Obviously,
I'd say they thought they were selling me a dud.
They weren't actually trying to oversell him either.
No, in fairness, he didn't cost me a fortune. And Tom and John Sheehan, I'm very friendly with both of them, and we had a meal the night after he won, and the first man that ever contacted me was John Sheehan anytime he won, you know.
Fair enough. And I guess, though, you obviously are comfortable enough taking horses that don't have, I suppose, as a small trainer, as we're talking about here, it's a very small operation. You have to take risks, and you have to kind of look for a bit of value where other people might have decided, oh, look, we're fed up with this now.
Well, I suppose, the big thing about this, and, people that listening, and I got a text there from someone after Master Mac won, and they said it's nice to see a horse that didn't cost over 200,000 win a Grade 1. And when they'll go down to the staff next Sunday above in Leopardstown, any of the other fellas aren't going to turn to Master McShee and say, we cost more than you.
This is the thing as well, because we spoke to Ross Sullivan about this. The National Hunt game is kind of, it's a bit like professional football in the sense now, like Paddy, that the Man City will basically win because they have the money, and it's really, really rare for a story like Master McShee to happen, even in the kind of vagaries of jumps race now, because all the good horses are gone before they're even, they're still minors effectively.
Yeah, well, I suppose, some of the people that have a good horse and they win a pint, they get a ball of money and they sell him. That's really what it is.
Did he look so when you got his various problems sorted out, didn't you work him, were you thinking, oh wow, there's something here?
It probably took me nearly a year and a half or more to kind of come up with that conclusion,
Wow.
But you must look at that. I have nothing to base him on. I have no yardstick, and
Who'd ride him out then?
I ride him out myself.
So you have to say, Paddy, what do you make of this lad? I'm not sure, Paddy. What do you think of him? And then you talk to yourself, and because you're trainer, man, everything going.
Well, I talk to myself a lot, but not all the time. But when I put Jimmy Maloney up on him, Jimmy is an ex-jockey.
Right.
And Jimmy he's the works rider as such, and he'd have a good idea of how good or bad they're not,
So he goes to the first bumper behind Run for Oscar, who's a good horse. Runs okay. Were you happy with the first run?
I blame myself a little bit because I was starved for a run and I kind of had him overcooked a bit.
Left him off then till November, and I actually remember the race well because Appreciated was an unbelievably short price, and you were basically leading for much of the race, and you pulled 28 lengths clear of third.
That's right, yeah.
What was the thought? If ever you're happy in defeat, that must be it.
Oh, there's no doubt that we knew that day after that run that we had something kind of serious enough. No, we kind of thought going to it now that he'd have a chance. Well, we had a good few quid in him to be second.
Really?
Yeah, but the bookies were closed, so we were backing online.
All right, that'll do. You still get paid?
Oh, we got paid, yeah.
So then he went to Cork, and I remember like thinking if this fellow were trained by a more recognised trainer, he'd be about 1 to 5 on that form. He was sent off 6 to 5, and probably a lot bigger price earlier, and won by 8.5 lengths.
That's right, yeah. You see, I suppose the other thing is, and it'll probably be the same Sunday in Leopardstown. I mean, you're taking on professional trainers. You're taking on people with horses that have been bought for 2 and 3 and 400,000. You know, and you must respect those people. They put a lot of work into it, and they put a lot of time into it, and I have no disrespect whatsoever for those. But the one thing about, you know, we say the favourite is trained by the top trainer in the country. But we're not going to tell Master McShee that. He won't know that.
And after the Leopardstown win, then I vaguely recall that there was plenty of chat. Like, this horse is worth a good bit of money. And
When is this? Sorry,
this is over a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So he beat C Ducker, who's obviously that's really solid form at Leopardstown handicap hurdle, which brought his mark up to 143. But I presume at that stage, the dream could have basically ended for you anyway, when you could have just cashed in.
Yeah, but I kind of made it clear the day he won in Cork. Kevin O'Ryan asked me, is he for sale? And I said no. And, you know, Brian Gleeson asked me the same story, and I said no. So you can't just buy something that's not for sale.
Well, let me ask you about that. Did you know you were going to say no when you were asked it, or was it a surprise to yourself as well?
You know, I don't do too much thinking about what I'm going to say. That's a big problem with me.
I don't think it's a problem at all, Paddy. But do you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't know the answer to a question until somebody actually says it. And you're like, geez, I said no, flat out. I was like, okay, I've talked myself into that position now. Was there a bit of that? Or you're like, I have something here, I want to keep it?
I'm spontaneous. I just didn't have my mind made up what I was going to do. But, you know, the other thing I look at is, you know, the happiness and the enjoyment. And you can go into any shop in the world and any of them don't sell happiness or enjoyment. You know, so like that in itself, it can't be bought. And like you sell him, you get a ball of money for him. Well, do you go looking for another one, spend it all, or do you keep what you have?
Well, I've just started watching Succession, and like money doesn't necessarily bring you happiness anyway. Like this, don't know.
Like the richest man in Ireland is not necessarily the happiest man in Ireland.
Not at all. And like it's just that story behind it. And the beauty of having a horse like that is the race itself doesn't take very long, but it's just there's so much build up to everything, and there's so much fun having him around, I suppose.
That's right. Well, look, I've said this to a fellow the other day. You know, the win in Limerick, I reckon, put 10 years onto my life. And the celebrations took 2 off it, so I'm up 8.
Okay, well look,
it could be 6 after Leopardstown, but anyway.
My Racing Moment is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow Horse Racing Ireland on social media. Let's talk about that win in detail at Limerick, because if anybody hasn't seen this, and they might not have, it's the Faugheen Novices Chase around Christmas time, and I just watched it back there this afternoon, and
I don't think he was up to you.
Well, you're sixth. You're sixth for a good bit of it, and like I know, obviously, that he's coming from 6th to win. So can you talk us through your recollections of the race and how you're feeling as it goes?
Well, you know, even though he was 6th, but he was jumping exceptionally well, and Ian had him in a super place all throughout the race, and that was kind of what Ian and myself discussed. Well, Ian does what he likes, but we kind of discussed the race, how it would pan out and stuff, and he was jumping so well and he was at his ease. I suppose everyone thought he didn't get up, including the commentator, but, you know, we were delighted that he did.
And as the race unfolds, what are you thinking? Why did it take 10 years off your life?
Well, the enjoyment of... I said it put 10 years on.
10 years on, yeah.
Okay,
geez,
sorry, yeah.
Don't be taking years away. This is a 16-year swing there in a minute.
Yeah, but the enjoyment of... I mean, if you're playing a county final, you know, you're thrilled. If you win a golf tournament, you're thrilled. And it all makes the enjoyment that bit better to win, you know?
Of course.
It's also so when he crosses the line, did you have any sort of inclination, maybe have a chance here?
There was a man just talking to me as he crossed the line. He said, "You have it." I didn't actually see. I didn't realise it at the time but I wasn't worried. You know, when he goes out there and runs a good race and comes home safe, that's a bonus in itself, you know.
This is, bear in mind now, this is like a second chase start and he's winning a Grade 1.
Yes, I suppose it was probably a brave call or a stupid call at the time before the race to put him into a Grade 1, but when the race was over, it was probably a brave call, you know.
Well, you can be absolutely sure if he suffers like an injury, or let's say he suffers any sort of injury, but a fatal injury, what the hell was he doing running in that race? He was a bloody idiot, and that's the after timing that you'll get.
Yeah, but look, you can get killed crossing the road. So if you're looking at life that way, you're at nothing. I mean, you put your horse out there and you expect him to win. When you're playing sports yourself, you can't look at it that way. You can get hurt, and you know that's sport. Like
it's not only the story of you and the horse, the story of Ian Power as well. I remember Ian riding like years and years ago. Hadn't heard from him in years. Like what his story as well just adds to the whole narrative.
Well, of course, he just went on the building sites for a while and he gave up racing, and it's like if he'll give you up hurling or football, and then he comes back to that after a few years again, and something similar with him.
You know, Joseph O'Brien has that, like he's hoping to bring in the, what was the series in Formula 1 again? The
Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive. So there are talks of that happening in racing. You imagine your story is surely worth a documentary anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't think, you know, I'm just happy enough to blather away along and win a few races, and I'm happy enough with that.
Well, he's only raced 9 times, so there's a long way to go here, I'd hope.
Well, I was about to say, so earlier when Johnny was going chronologically through it, that was the hurdling career. You're now in the chasing career, and sorry, is the horse 8 or 9? Is that about right?
That'd be about right, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. So you've a good 2-3 years left of top quality chasing, and maybe longer.
Just turned 8.
I have, and I suppose the other thing is, like, he's not very exposed over hurdles, so there'd be nothing stopping me to go back to a Grade 2 or 3 hurdle as well, you know.
But is he better chasing?
He's a better jumper than most.
So what's the celebration like then after Limerick?
I think the pubs closed at 8 o'clock.
What time did you finish?
The publican came out and he said, "Come in, lads, we're closing."
A publican who shall not be named. Well, actually, Golfgate, they got away with it, so it doesn't matter anymore.
We actually went down to the pub, had 3 or 4 pints, and we came home to the house with a few glasses of wine and watched the race 100 times.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can never get tired of watching a race like that again.
And about 4 o'clock, Alexa said, "For God's sake, Paddy, go to bed," she said. She even started to give you out to me around 4 o'clock. Yeah. But no, you never get tired of watching a race like that. And again, going back to money, you know, money don't buy that kind of enjoyment.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a nice little add-on to a successful story like this. What about at the weekend then? You know, the Dublin Racing Festival, you've made the point that none of the other horses are going to be turning around slagging off
Master Mac, yeah.
Yeah, because
you know, I suppose anyone that have a gambling perspective, they want to make sure that, you know, they're backing an unprofessional trainer, you know, and maybe slightly inexperienced horse. And I wish anyone that puts a few quid in them will get it back, but we can't guarantee it.
How do you think he'll go?
Like a carryman said to me one day, he gave me a tip and he said, "Remember, boy," he said, "that's a tip, not a winner."
Yeah.
You know, and that is the truth of it, like, you know.
Well, like, there will be people who will put a lot of money on the favourite in the race, and the way he, Galpin Deschamps, the way he won over the Christmas, were just in terms of previewing the race. As a jockey, you're probably in a slightly rock and a hard place here if you're not riding the favourite, because you want to, you don't want him to have a solo, I suppose, but at the same time you don't want to kill your own horse.
Well, this is it, and I'm sure, you know, Ian has been foot perfect on the horse up to now, and, you know, once Ian will sit in that horse, he'll know. Like, we're not going to cut out throat to stay with him or whatever, you know. But you must look at it that we've also ran exceptionally well in a novice hurdle, a Grade 1 novice hurdle, and he burst the blood vessel, and we were there turning in, you know. He's
a burster as well, is he?
He burst the blood vessel in that Grade 1 novice hurdle.
So what did you do with that?
Oh, I suppose I changed a few things around, and we're training from out in the field, and changed his feed and changed his hailage and different things like that, you know.
It's mad, like, for this horse has defied an awful lot of things where he wouldn't say he's ticked the box here or whatever to be the horse he is.
Yeah, but I suppose the biggest problem with that, and from a gambling perspective, that's hanging over him all the time. And we don't know, and any trainer will tell you this, it's not a nice thing, and you never know when it can happen.
So then it's not that it's house money, but the success is extra. It's added value when you've got that concern and that worry. If the horse is healthy and comes out healthy after the weekend, what's the rest of the year look like? What are you thinking of?
I suppose Fairy House or Punchestown if the ground will be, and the way the weather has been now, there could be a lot of rain come around that time. And if he gets softer ground, he's probably a better horse than a lot of horses in soft ground, Is there a plan or a dream of Cheltenham at all? Yeah, maybe next year, I might go to a smaller race in Cheltenham and I have a little bit of dip my toe in the water, as they say, and see how Master Mac would travel and see how I travel myself.
Why not this year, though?
Well, I'm looking at it. If I can't beat him at the Dublin Racing Festival, and it's only 200 miles away from home, there's no point in going 600 or 700 miles to beat him, is there? Well,
you mightn't necessarily be running against him.
Well, sure, more than likely you'll be taking on in novice chases, like in a 2 miles 5, you'll be taking on some of the same company. Like, I'll be honest with you, at this point in time, we don't really know how good is Master Mac. Now, if all goes well on Sunday and he doesn't bust and he jumps well and stays and he's in good form, we might have a little bit of a better result Sunday evening,
What does Cheltenham mean to you? Because it's obviously the holy grail for so many people. Not for everyone either, people might be just as happy to win a race in Tramore on New Year's Day.
Yeah, look, I'm not being disrespectful to Cheltenham, but I was going to England for years buying tractors over there and bringing him home and get on the boat and spend 4 hours rocking over and back and get on over and spend 4 hours rocking home. And it's not the be-all and end-all to me now. The festival is brilliant, but taking a horse over there and going with that hardship, I'm not too sure.
There you go, yeah. It's I suppose, as you say, like, you'll be a lot more you'll have a lot more knowledge on Sunday, because it is only his third chase start and he's only just after basically ending his maiden status as a chaser, like.
That's right, yes. So, look, it'll be very interesting. I mean, to be honest, he went to Limerick and he beat a very good horse in Farouk Dillon. And, whatever happens on Sunday, he's still a Grade 1 winner. And we have a Grade 1 under our belt, so we'll be happy with that.
Look, it's a sensational story. And a week like this, do you get nervous in the build-up? Are you just excited? Is it all good? Or are there little bits of you that are like watching the clock?
I don't do nerves.
Right.
Yeah, just keep a low profile. And I have this pact that, and I said it to Ian this morning, that whatever happens, we'll come home Sunday evening in roughly the same form that we went in.
Yeah.
As long as he's all safe and sound, like that's.
Look, as long as he's safe and sound, but even at that, if you come home and win, there's no point in getting too high, and if anything goes wrong, there's no point in getting too low. So.
It's a good piece of advice.
You kind of have to take the go, especially in horse racing, because it can be a very cruel sport.
It's very up and down, mainly down.
And both for horse and jockey,
I'm sure. At the same time, enjoying the triumphs is also part of life's journey, and so you should definitely celebrate it. And I suspect that if you were to get an extra 8 years on balance this weekend, you'd be happy enough. So your day job is you're a tractor mechanic, is that right?
Well, I sell tractors and we're milking cows as well, but my son John is farming now, so.
Right. You've a lot going on, and in the midst of that, you've got a superstar in your hands, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Look.
You never know. Sunday evening will tell us whether he's a superstar or not, maybe. Well, he is up now, because to be honest, he's a lot done for us.
Well, it's a good story. It's a great story. I'm wrong about that. It's a great story. Absolutely sensational. Congratulations on the success. We wish you an incredible 2022, Paddy, whatever happens. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for your time.
All the best, Paddy.
Thanks for having me.
That's Paddy Corkery there, who's the trainer. If you haven't watched the race from Limerick at Christmas, you should. It's Master McShee getting a bob on the head to get over the line.
Yeah, as he said, the commentator got it wrong. It was one of those races where it was hard to believe he got up, but I think, beating Jigginstown in terms of the egalitarian kind of distribution of riches in the racing game, nobody would be too unhappy with that. It's a completely mad story, Ger. So many layers to it. the fact that I'm involved in a horse like that switched yards and everything's going great, but he's burst twice in his work now, and it's a real negative, because it's essentially like it's internal bleeding, but the horse just like obviously can't finish out his or her race then, and it's a major negative. But to have a wind issue as well, like, and to come from basically being a cast off given to a fella that hardly anyone in racing had ever heard of, and just said, listen, sure, best of luck, and next thing he's like, the horse is worth an awful lot of money.
Well, it's a great story, absolutely great story. This is Friday Night Racing. It is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back previewing the actual big races at the Dublin Racing Festival.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
With 8 Grade 1 races, the Bonus Point Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup and the Chanel Pharma Irish Champion Hurdle. Needless to say, Honeysuckle is in everybody's stable. This weekend's Dublin Racing Festival may finally deliver a shake-up in our Tote 10 to follow competition. It's a long way behind Johnny, that myself and Danny Mullins are. There's only 45 points though between myself and Danny. You're on 319, which is 140 roughly, 130 ahead of Danny, and Danny's 49 ahead of me.
Puts me in the top something percent of everyone, I think.
Yeah, not bad. It's good that all that work and all those hours, endless.
Kind of a bit of a Master McShee story. It's a complete black sheep type thing. Just outlier stuff doesn't really make any sense. But I'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, let us preview the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup then. What's going to happen?
I think if Master McShee ran in this, he'd have a chance, because it's a really weird race this year. Frodon's coming over.
Why can't Frodon get no love?
No, Frodon will get love. Frodon could definitely win. I think Kenboy should have his measure around Leopardstown. Kenboy has won this the last couple of years, and he loves this track. I really liked his attitude at Christmas when he was headed by Galvin and Aplutard and rallied all the way to the line. They don't run in this race, so that might be enough. Paul Townend will have a horse just that absolutely relishes the demands of Leopardstown, and the ground has been again. It actually rained 23 days succession, I think, of dry weather in Dublin in January, so that sort of ground will suit him. But if you look at it, Asterion Forlorn, he's fallen the last twice. He needs to go the other way. Janadil doesn't really stay. Celius Emery shouldn't be good enough. Delta Work seems to be gone at the game. And obviously Manila Indo. So Robbie Power's riding Manila Indo because the owners seemingly said, well, Rachel Blackburn's not going to be riding him at Cheltenham, so we'll give it to Robbie Power here. Amazing comeback for Robbie, who's literally just back in the saddle after a bad injury, and he has a chance, but he's a lot to prove as well. I actually think Conflated is worth an each way bet in the race. He shouldn't win, but there's so many doubts about everything else. Davy Russell riding him, he couldn't have ridden the track better at Christmas in the big Grade 1. He's a consistent horse, not totally exposed, and he'd be my 5 each way in the race. Anything could happen in it.
What kind of prices? Conflated?
40s.
All right. Okay.
So if you put €5 each way at 40 to 1, that means you get nothing back.
Yeah.
But as one firm is paying 4 places, I think he'll run his race. I think a load of these have so many questions. There are only 8 runners. Half of them have massive questions against them.
Okay. Why are you against Kenboy and Asterion Forlange?
I wouldn't. Kenboy, if I were, Asterion Forlange is gone the wrong way and he's fallen the last twice. He's a bit of a enigma of a horse at this stage. Kenboy, I think, is a horse to beat. Frodon, in fairness, he should run well. He had a hard race the last day. He was disappointing in the King George, not as disappointing as Manila Indo. Bryony Frost, obviously, it'll be interesting. I think she'll get a great reception if she comes in. Frodon's a very popular horse, won in Down Royal earlier in the year, but it's a bit of a mad race. There's going to be a lot of pace in it, and that could suit Conflated as well.
Okay, eased out to 50s, I see, Conflated.
I remember going to the dog track with my mate down the years, and it was the real insult. You'd back like such a dog with the bookie, he'd take your money, go to the board and put him out in price after you'd backed him. It's like, well, you clearly don't don't take me very seriously anyway. And, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, well, what else do you need to talk about here about Saturday?
Well, Saturday is probably the better of the 2 days, I would argue. The first of the grade ones is the first race, which is Hollow Games. Probably not the strongest race in the world. Freedom to Dream. Kevin Sexton had an unbelievable year. He's another 33-40 to 1 shot. I think has a squeak each way. He's very unexposed. Ran well at Limerick on desperate ground over the Christmas. Bet of the day for me is Phil Dore in the juvenile race. A lot of people would have watched Pied Piper. His performance at Cheltenham was extraordinary, really, last Saturday. The typical response when you ask anyone in the yard, how would you compare Field Door and Pied Piper? Well, they never worked together, so we can't compare them. But to be fair, I think they are totally different horses. About to say something very profound here.
Well, I was. Let's, in a hypothetical scenario where something like that existed, would you say that's true, or do they not actually do a lot of work together so they can test them themselves, so they know the answer to that?
So generally, I don't think they do work together, and certainly the proverbial gun wouldn't be put to their head, because they wouldn't. Racing is not like training for inter-county, for example. Like they never go all out. They train them to get them to a certain level, and then the race course, that's when they go to the threshold or whatever.
And would you not learn quite a lot about working your similar standard best horses against each other?
Yeah, and like that would be
the 3/4 of your best versus 3/4 of my best. Let's see where we're going.
Yeah, some yards would do it, but in this case, obviously Gordon has so many horses, but these will be two different horses as well. Field Door is a national hunt horse. Pied Piper is a kind of a flashy flat horse.
Right.
Typical sort of like ticking the boxes of what you'd expect in the juvenile division. Is
this a juvenile hurdle?
This is a juvenile hurdle, so for 4-year-olds. But Vauban was a mad hot favourite on his Irish debut. Was just touched off by Pied Piper, who then bolted up at Cheltenham. So the implication is that Vauban is very, very good. I'm not sure why he's wearing a tongue tie. That would be a slight concern. And Field Door, for me, I love the way he goes about his business. He's my bet of the day anyway.
Very short price as well.
6-4. 6-4. It's not too bad. He's normally shorter than that, but he's the type of lad that, you know, as a friend you'd kind of love to hate, because everything comes his way and he doesn't even try. That's kind of, he's very relaxed, kind of laid back, but does everything that you need him to do.
Okay, the talk about the watering and the number of horses that we were going to have, are the fields about the right size, or are you?
Yeah, no, in fairness, Gordon Elliott walked the track during the week and was happy with it. It was a couple of years ago, there was an unbelievable spate of non-runners on the 2 or 3 years ago, I can't exactly remember, on the Sunday. And it's very, very difficult for Lorcan, and it's been spoken about a lot in the build-up to the meeting, that Leopardstown's chase track in particular drains extremely well, and obviously
which in Ireland you would have thought was like a massive advantage.
Totally, it'd be a massive advantage for a flat track, but Leopardstown is obviously this time of year is a jumps track, and it's funny, like, because the recording that there were 23 consecutive days in the Phoenix Park weather station with no rain. That's not abnormal for Dublin anymore. It really doesn't rain that much. But by extension, Leopardstown has a problem that they did drainage on the track 10 or 15 years ago, and apparently it drains so well that it dries really quickly, and they've loaded water on it for artificial water, which it really is mad at a jumps track this time of year. But despite all of that, the horses that we're going to turn up are essentially here. Honeysuckle is here, and it rained a little bit last night as well, and Gordon Elliott said like it was fine, he's no issues with it, so I hope it's not an issue. But it's a really tough one for the Clerk de Course, because generally you shouldn't interfere with nature as much as you can, but nature is kind of screwed up at the moment.
Yeah, okay, so that's Saturday. Sunday, the highlight is obviously Honeysuckle. There will be extra people on the gate because Honeysuckle is running. Everybody wants to go and see Honeysuckle. It looks like it's an easier race for Honeysuckle this year than last year.
Yeah, like it's. I'd implore people to go racing this weekend, particularly the fact that it's just we've waited so long for meetings like this, and I think the likes of Gallopin, Deschamps running and that, and Honeysuckle. Let's be honest, this isn't a great renewal of the race at all. She's taking on Zanahiyr and horses that are nowhere near good enough, and Zanahiyr's not good enough. I appreciate it was going to run, doesn't run, but to be fair, there are opposition to Honeysuckle in general is 10 on the ground anyway, and I just would love to see her finish her career unbeaten, and I'm not saying they should retire her, but I think it's a beautiful thing that she has. She's an amazing horse. She just I don't know what it is. People like me have opposed her from time to time. She's too short in the betting. She didn't win by much the last day. The track won't be suitable. Blah 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 blah. But she always does it. And she has this extreme, like, I'm the girl here. I'm the dude. Like, I'm the king of the stable here, and like basically I'm the boss, and she races like that. And her story with Rachel Blackmore, we saw the documentary about Rachel before the Christmas, has been unbelievable for racing at a time when it needed it.
Okay, so that is unopposable, definitely.
Yeah, she's bar if something goes spectacularly wrong, she's a 6-1 on shot or something like that. I of all the races, hardly anyone wants to see her beaten anyway.
Yeah, I'm seeing 11-4 on in one place. Just to go back briefly, I mean, obviously we talked about Master McShee a little bit earlier on. Galopin Des Champs is 2-1 on around that. Master McShee's 6-1. Do you give Master McShee a chance of overturning Galopin Des Champs?
No, Galopin Des Champs was not only a very good hurdler, but his jumping technique at Christmas was had everybody looking for a superlative afterwards, including Willie Mullins, who was really, really, just full of praise for the horse performance afterwards. And bear in mind, like, the racing was so good with all the grade ones over the Christmas. This was a maiden chase, and I think his performance was talked about almost more than anything. It was absolutely spectacular, as I spoke about there with Paddy. If you're a jockey, I think jockeys get a lot of crap from, armchair punters who are saying, oh, he gave him too much rope, he gave him this, he gave him that, he gave her this, he gave her that. If you go after this horse, you could cost yourself quite a bit in terms of, you could end up the horse falling because he's legless, because he's gone after the pace. Galopin Des Champs is going to go off hard here and maintain a strong gallop, and the rest of them, it'll be a game of cat and mouse to try to finish second, I think, for 30 grand, because it shouldn't be good enough to beat him, as much as Fury Road was good at Christmas. If you are a bookmaker, this is a horse you should take on, because the hype machine is so much that you're almost inclined to think he's unbeatable, and he's probably not unbeatable here, but I can't oppose him. He was breathtaking at Christmas.
Okay, anything else that you want to talk about on?
I guess Shaq and Poursois return in the Ladbrokes Chase. A lot of eyes on that, because he bombed out in the Tingle Creek. More than willing to give him another chance. I think he's well worth the bet. I think he's about 8-11. You're essentially betting on him running his race, because if he does that, he'll win. He's won the race the last couple of years. And apart from that, then we have Sir Gerhard, who I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think he's great. I definitely back him. I think he's extremely exciting. He reminds me of O'Connor. Hopefully he lasts longer than O'Connor did, by Jeremy as well. A horse that may step up and trip at Cheltenham to avoid his stablemate Dicer Diamond, but at the moment, I think he's a great bet in the 335. Him and Fieldor would be my double for the weekend.
All right. So
and what can go wrong the way my tend to follow is going at the moment?
It's fairly sensational. Visit tote.ie to avail of the tote guarantee on all Irish and UK racing, and of course you can bet at the track at Leopardstown on Saturday and Sunday as well. Were you at the National Gallery?
I was actually, yeah.
Jack B. Yates?
Yeah, it was a lot of real racing team to his stuff, actually. Like, I'm not obviously no connoisseur, but
you know what you like.
It's the funny thing is, if you like, so there were 3 or 4 rooms of Jack B. Yates stuff. So like his catalogue was incredible. Like, he was well into his 80s. He was still, and like, so I think he'd 600 odd paintings or whatever. Now, we're only selection them there, but you're really doing them a total disservice by just looking at them and moving on, because you could look at one painting for 2 hours and be discovering things all the time with it. And the horsey stuff was stunning, like, really was. And I know racing's well suited for artwork, but his stuff would amaze you. And I actually, maybe some people listening will know the answer to this. And I was at Leopardstown when he won as a 2-year-old. Was Yates named after him or his brother? I actually don't know the answer to that.
I don't know.
There's one for Mrs. Sue Magner and so on.
I'd say Ivan thought it was after himself.
Well, it's different spelling. Nice dig, though.
It's good when you explain the joke, Johnny.
It
always helps. Did you know that Barney Eastwood was a prolific buyer of art?
I did.
And owned a load of Jack B. Yates and Lucian Freud stuff, and that Freud gave him a load of paintings in payment for bets that he was making.
Wow.
That there was, like, that's how they ended up getting a lot of the work at the start. It was like, should give me a painting, we call it quits.
Wow.
And Barney's business partner was good mates with Freud, and that artwork all turned out to be worth like tens of millions. Each piece was like just this explosive value.
The Donnellys as well, who own Asterion Forlorn, among others, massive collectors of artwork as well. But the funny thing about that today was that it was bumper to bumper in terms of people, because I think the exhibition closes maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
And obviously there must have been COVID restrictions. But people were, I guess if you're into art, this is like the holy grail to have all this stuff available in the National Gallery, which itself is a stunning building, it has to be said.
The sports element of that is definitely something that we should have been talking about to tell everybody to go to this, but we're very late for this. You can make a good weekend of it. Arthur's like, I told you months ago.
Arthur Ruddy should get a mention here, because he was the one who advised me to do this in the first place. He also advised me to go to Endgame, the Beckett play that's been delayed, whatever was going to be played. So the man is of great taste. He's also the Sligo connection with Yeats, probably not to be.
It was Jack B. Yeats who Yeats was named after. Is that what you're telling me? No, you don't know. Okay, all right.
There are definitely people. I don't know the answer to this. Yates, who's a sire of many of the horses running at the weekend. Who is he named after?
Well, we shall find out for next week. I know that the audience is bated breath and they're all texting in at this stage, 53106. That is this week's episode of Friday Night Racing. We hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. We got some wit and wisdom from Paddy Corkery a little bit earlier on. And I, for one, am definitely hoping and cheering for him this weekend to see if that victory can add another 8 years to his life. We'll see you next Friday afternoon. Take care.
Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.